Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the internet metaverse. Welcome to WorkDoneLive, where we discuss all aspects of the future of work. My name is Joe Rogers, and I am the CEO and founder of WorkDone, which is a best practices discernment and corporate memory platform, which operates at the intersection of knowledge management and process automation. My cohort, Kirsten Campbell, the marketing tornado, is not with us this week, so we'll have to get on ourselves to the best of our abilities. Today, we are speaking with Derick Carter and Jim Van Huysse. Derick spent I'm actually going to stop sharing. There we go. Derick spent the first part of his career as a management consultant, supporting organizations to improve their operational performance by increasing their efficiency and effectiveness through automation, continuous process improvement, quality management, strategic alignment, etc. The second part of Derick's career began with the exploration of how to improve his own health and wellness. This led him to working with others to recover from injury, decrease stress, and improve physical performance as a performance and wellness practitioner and coach. Currently, Derick uses his understanding of leadership, organizational structure, and cultivating relationships to support change agents in creating environments that bring forth a new way of organizing and working together for greater impact and well-being for all. So, Derick, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
And our other guest is Jim Van Huysse. Jim had a long and successful career. I've got the air quotes here. Successful career.
Whatever that means.
In the traditional business world. After he moved to California in '95, he worked for a Fortune 50 software company in the Bay Area, after which he teamed up with three friends to start the first internet radio service. And they built it into one of the largest services on the internet and sold out to AOL back in 1999. And he had other roles, but since then his life took a turn. In one of his last leadership roles, turnaround for a startup trying to reinvent itself, he came down with mono and pneumonia in a 6-month period. So after his wife took a leadership position at a very high profile tech company, he decided to shift gears and become a stay-at-home dad for their 3 girls. He is currently the executive director of the Heart-Based Institute. He joined in late 2018. He has served on a number of other nonprofit organizations, including as a trustee and Step One School, where he chaired the preschool's first capital campaign, raising over 1.5 million. Jim has been practicing heart-based meditation since 2006 and is grateful to be able to combine his business experience with his spiritual practice, helping individuals, service providers, business professionals, and organizations realize the transformative effects of the heart. So thank you both for agreeing to join today. As always, all of our friends out there in the internet land, we want to hear from you. So as the conversation proceeds, please don't hesitate to pop questions or comments into the chat, and I'll try my best to respond. So, that's awesome. First off, let me just say that this is quite an honor to have you both. And I, in my own personal journey, as someone who's had a quote unquote successful business career and still going, came to realize that the things I was going after were largely, well, I don't want to say empty, but there was no there. When you think you get it, then you realize, is this it? Is that all there is? And the meaning was lacking in the pursuit of whatever of the mighty dollar in my case. So I think having this hour to chat with you guys who have done a lot in this space and interacted with a lot of people. I got to say, when we posted on LinkedIn that we were discussing spirituality this week, we got the most response ever to any of our topics. So I think the audience is out there and people want to know, and there's a thirst for it. So, and I saw a stat: 77% of the U.S. population identifies as religious. But spirituality is not necessarily the same as religion. What's the difference? I'll let either of you answer that.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think the difference for me, spirituality, I think is really needed in religion. Otherwise, it would just be shallow and not there. But you don't need religion to be spiritual. And I think at our nonprofit, Heart-Based Institute, what we like to say is, whether it's higher power or just something beyond yourself, something, greater than yourself, but sort of connecting first with that spirituality is, and relying on that so that your sort of normal is peace, calm, joy, gratitude, like that. Experiencing those states is your normal by relying on this connection. And that doesn't have to be sort of relegated to, okay, when I meditate or when I pray or when I'm in a house of worship or whatever. But the idea is that not to sort of compartmentalize it, but experience that in all contexts, including work, of course.
I see. Would you like to add on to that, Derick?
Yeah, I'm probably going to say the same thing that Jim said, just in a different way. But like for me, it's a spirituality is like a personal connection. And so for me, I was over the course of my life, I've tried different religions, and something just didn't settle right with me, but I always felt that I was connected to something greater than myself. You can call it, God, creator. I didn't really have a word for it, but I always felt this connection and I always felt cared for. And so to me, that's how I kind of view spirituality, is just this personal relationship where I can kind of just know that I'm not alone in whatever challenges I'm dealing with.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that, my personal experience. So I grew up Catholic, and there's nothing against the Catholic Church or those who are of the Catholic faith, but for me, I think I reacted to what I saw as challenges in the church, and instead I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, and I was atheist for a number of years, and I just was very sure that I knew that there was I just had to rely on myself, objectivism, whatever it was. But I think over time, and as I sort of connected with my heart and had different experiences, I kind of realized that there is something there, and you don't have to have an intermediary necessarily to tap into it and to experience it. And once I did tap into it and really experience some of that deep levels of peace or whatever, I kind of realized that, oh yeah, I guess there is a difference.
So you anticipated my next question. It's wonderful to sort of connect to a higher power, but there's a lot of people who don't necessarily believe there's a higher power.
Yeah.
So, and in the context of this discussion around the future of work, what would you say to someone who's a hard-charging, sales guy or manager who's all about working, and hustle and 16-hour days? How would you describe it to that person, or would that person necessarily be interested in hearing?
Yeah,
I can go first on that one. Yeah, for me, I never tried to like promote spirituality. And I figure, everyone has their own path. I know certainly, there's been times in my life that, someone was coming up to me and saying, hey, I totally. And so I find just having a conversation with folks and just meeting them where they're at. I think in work, we can all identify at times feeling like overwhelmed, stressed, thinking actually hurts, like your head feels like it's being squeezed, right? And not sure what to do or how to handle that. And so those are entryways for conversations, about well-being, like learning how to relax, or stress management is kind of one of the terms people use. And so no one says like, no, I love my stress, give me more. Like everyone's responsive to that. And from there, showing them like, okay, how they can feel and experience that themselves. To me, that's like the first step. And I feel like this is a good handoff point to Jim, because Jim can elaborate on ways that people can experience probably more better than I. But once people experience that and they feel that, there's a wave of relief I find for most folks. Like, wait a second, like, whoa, this is within me. Like I don't have to just be in this reactionary, just like, just almost on automatic, right? Being just pinged against whatever comes up in my life. I can actually find a center that's actually feels nice and welcomed. And usually when people can experience that, I haven't had anyone say like, no, that sucked. I totally don't want that anymore. People want to learn a little bit more, and how more really depends. I mean, I get to spirituality, but it gives them a window to kind of like start looking.
Yeah.
So that's sort of I guess everything is on a one-to-one basis usually. I mean, that's kind of how that conversation would happen. But I'm wondering, within an organization, like there's a lot of resistance to discussing this sort of thing. On one hand, people want to be respectful of others' differing beliefs, or they don't believe and think that that person's, got problems, or they don't, it's kind of separation of church and state sort of thing. It doesn't belong in the workplace yet, there's plenty of proof that when people can show up to work as their whole self, then it's like productivity goes up and employee engagement goes up and just everybody's happier. So like, it seems like the facts are pointing one way, but I think the old management behavior is pointing a different way.
Yeah, I think, especially in America, I mean, I think in the West, even I might say in Europe and Australia and wherever, but I think, Asia Pacific might be a little bit different in terms of sort of the boundaries or sort of walls or barriers that are sort of put up between sort of church and state. But I think part of it is, why it hasn't really, or there is sort of a taboo around it, especially in America, is number one, I think there's sort of a mentality around, well, when I'm at work, I'm in my work mode. And when I'm at home, I'm in my family mode. And when I'm at church or when I'm doing a prayer, I'm in my meditation, then I'm in my meditative state. So I think, and we all, I think, can identify with that to a degree. So how do we, instead of like having these sort of verticals or whatever, be more integrated in our daily experience? And I think the other thing is, and part of the hesitation around spirituality is there's not like a common playbook or vocabulary that can transcend beliefs. So, I might not be as aware of, some of the Muslim faith, aspects of the Muslim faith. So I just don't want to go there. So, or I'm going to schedule lunch during Ramadan and not think about it or whatever. It's not going to be on my radar. So I think, number one, I think you have to make it opt-in. And Derick kind of alluded to that. You can't you can't force it, because you're going to turn people off, and it's going to have the opposite effect of what you likely intend. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is to have, there are aspects of spirituality, I think, are pretty much universal, love, gratitude, whatever. So you can bring things in sort of a diffused, uncharged way. But, I'll say an experience that we had with our nonprofit, where we went into Pfizer. It's a company I think most people have heard of since 2020. This was a while ago, but there were 120 like hardcore research scientists that joined in this session. It was like a 3-hour session. And, we kind of just said, we talked about the spiritual heart and how that's different than the physical heart. And we also gave them permission to insert their own vocabulary, their own belief system, and whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be Allah or Buddha or Jesus or whatever. It could be the universe, or quantum field, or universal love, just the notion that it's not just on you, like there is something that connects us, whatever, like that thing. We had them really be conscious about it before we got into it, to say, okay, whatever your belief system is, you're there. And we're going to call it true source. We're going to call it source, right? But source of love and light, whatever. But that the terminology doesn't matter. So, if you're agnostic, or even if you're atheist, we've had people who have said that, like, it's not really for me, but they can believe and relate to something that which is beyond themselves. And then they can, that's a doorway. And then to get in and experience their own connection to whatever that is, I think it can really break down a lot of barriers.
So you're saying atheists can feel a connection?
I think so. I mean, again, if you want to be like, have a physics sort of lens to it, like the idea of like quantum energy. I mean, if you need that sort of, or that's your belief, but it is, sort of energy, that sort of positivity, negativity, whatever. We haven't really found a case where even those who, really kind of reject religion or even higher power, haven't at least been able to kind of connect with this space and really just feel a little benefit from it.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't hurt that I can relate to, some of what, having been sort of considered myself at one time as an atheist, to sort of relate to folks that way as well.
Yeah. And if I could just add to that too, I mean, I think this notion of our heart, right? And a heart being kind of like the center of us being able to feel like what some folks will call higher emotions, like love, right, compassion, and things of that sort. I think, at least from the conversation I've been in, that's readily accepted, no matter what the faith. It's kind of like, yeah, like that feels true for folks. And in business, I think it's become, especially over COVID, people have realized more and more, like, we're in our heads, right? And I think there's been a growing movement for that for some time, but now, especially with COVID, people like are stressed out, and there's more mind body things, and so I think it's natural for people to say, hey, like, yeah, our heart is part of us too, right? And if I want to be a leader that has more empathy, or one that cares more, or I even hear the word love being used now. I had a meeting this morning with a gentleman from Germany. His whole thing is bringing love to business, right? And so that's being more prevalent. And so people connect those higher emotions to the heart. And so when you say and an offer for folks to say, hey, let's an experience where they can feel their heart and connect to those feelings deep inside, and I don't hear anyone really push back and say, like, no, like, this is for my head. People really feels the truth in that and responds to that. And I think more and more people in the world overall, but in business too, are trying to find ways like, well, how do I use my heart, mind, and body together? How do I, go to work, and still be compassionate and deal with all the stuff I have to do and so forth. So anyway.
Yeah. I had Joe, the company you mentioned when you were doing the intro, where I had mono and pneumonia within 6 months of each other. So that environment was not the healthiest. But in that environment, I had a leadership role, and there was the COO and I were in a meeting once, and he said, I think there has to be a certain amount of pressure and stress for someone to be productive. And I was kind of flabbergasted, to be honest. But, I don't think his feeling on that was actually that unique, or at least this was a few years ago. So I think it was, unfortunately, I think that's kind of prevalent. Like, not to say that you don't need deadlines or, can't set goals, of course, but, or the bottom line isn't important. It all is. But I think people, again, as Derick said, especially with COVID, are realizing that, they can get to a breaking point, and then what? There was a poll in 2019 that Gallup did. So again, pre-COVID, where they found, again, not to make it American centric, but they found that 55% of Americans experience stress a lot of the day. And that kind of led to 76% experiencing burnout in whatever their work was. And, it's like a cascading effect. They were 23% more likely to go to the ER, and, more likely to have 63% more likely to take a sick day. And that led to like 50% of them they're 50% less likely to talk with their manager about goals. So that engagement piece was certainly less. They're 2.5 times more likely to be looking for another job. So retention, so I think, spirituality really kind of touches on aspects of all of those things, whether it's wellness or kind of sense of purpose or meaning, or sort of moral compass stuff, or, interpersonal, how you're interacting with others. So, why not have that sort of grounding to fall back on, especially if you can make it, inclusive. So.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, there's hard dollars and cents. Like, it's not soft. Those are hard dollars. You would think management would get the message. And interestingly enough, we're seeing it today with the Great Resignation, or as Kirsten calls it, the resignation revolution. It's like people are like, no, I'm done. Don't need this. It's not worth it. And so then it kind of leads to what was lacking. Was it just low pay? Maybe not. Was it lack of meaning to what they're doing? I mean, there's like a garbage man. There's like serious value to being a garbage man. We need garbage men. It's like there's nothing wrong. Or working the fast food drive-through window. So it's really, there's a huge disconnect, and I think that's sort of, if maybe in the future of work, if more of these jobs were grounded in meaning and purpose, or maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's two examples that come to mind, or to heart. Facebook being one. Like, again, a company, and I don't want to, there are folks out there that work in social media. I don't want to throw people under the bus, but I think there are examples that are pretty clear about sort of the moral compass in certain aspects kind of being off. And if you contrast that with someone like Southwest Airlines, where they kind of have built that in a little bit to, their culture, where they have this thing called a warrior spirit, where a servant's heart, like how sweet is that? Like a servant's heart, and love. Like that is literally, one of the things that they bring up in, amongst their own staff.
It's their stock
And
ticker symbol.
yeah, right, exactly. The heart.
It's a LUV.
Yeah, exactly. Rooted in love, LUV. And so, something like that, a flight attendant or pilot or whatever, it's, especially in COVID times, it's not the most fun job. It can be stressful, just like any position really, which with human interaction. But I don't know, like every time I'm on a Southwest flight, like it seems like kind of lighter, there's more interaction, there's humor, there's levity, and that's kind of unique. And I don't think it's a coincidence. So.
Sure. In my career as a consultant, I've seen the insides of a number of organizations, and it's absolutely fascinating. Like, you can almost feel it as soon as you walk in the door. Like whether people are happy or there's a sense of dread or just this heaviness. And, people who walk around like this, kind of like hoping to not be noticed, fly below the radar. It's just like, oof, they're looking at their clock, or they're waiting to retire in another 12 years. It's just, it seems like there's so much lost opportunity.
Yeah.
In environments like that. So how does one bring this into let's say a Fortune 50 company? Like how you have to get management on board, and presumably it would have to be sort of opt-in, as you said earlier. And then there's going to be people who are into it and people who aren't. And I guess work time would have to be carved out during the day, because nobody's going to stay after work or give up their lunch, which means theoretically lower productivity, but it might actually mean higher productivity. Like, how do you go about it, Derick?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because it may look a lot different than what people think. There is one way, like, you could get top management involved, and I've done that, but then there's more ways to do it in an integrated fashion. And so what I find is that within every organizations, like, you have the positional authority and power, but then you have people that are kind of behind that, are really getting the work done. And they also tend to be like the hubs of relationships, right? They tend to kind of like naturally care for people. People tend to kind of, in terms of trouble or trying to find things to do, turn to them because they know that, they're accessible and they're safe and they're willing to help, and they can connect you to whoever you need to connect to. And those folks are called change agents, and they can be in positional power or not in positional power. They could be a secretary. They could be the person that works in a warehouse. They could be, and these folks tend to naturally hold a certain space, quality of space. And what I've found, especially over the last couple of years, that within the organization and also outside of organizations, a lot of people have been gathering on their own time, right, and developing practices that that they can do together, that they can reinforce, that they can support each other. Some of them are spiritual practices, some of them are more kind of like mindfulness or whatever the case might be, and they learn from each other, and they embody, and they take that and they bring it back to their workplace. And when they communicate and when they talk to folks, it's felt. And also they'll take different practices in it. So one simple practice folks might bring in is like, we've been on these Zoom meetings, and now, because we don't have to actually change conference room stuff, you can just sit in front of your computer all day. And so folks will just take this natural break. Like, let's take a minute or two and just breathe before we step and just get kind of just settle in this place. And that's a very non-threatening way, right? Because you're going to breathe anyway. so and some people will lead it, right? or relaxation practices or movement practices or things of that sort. And people, they feel better for it, you know, and they'll say it. People will do check-ins, and there's a different way of doing check-in when you care for folks versus like, kind of like, so Jim, what's going on today? You know, and it's felt. And so when these people go into spaces and they genuinely, authentically express like, okay, we just do check-ins to see how everyone's doing today, it's felt, and people will learn and mimic that, and it starts to propagate. And so there's a strategy in which if you can create a circle of folks, right, and get them to come together, come apart, spread, and then create another circle within, you can create change and influence within an organization. It might not look like our policy change, our processes change. You're still going to deal with some of that, but people are starting to change, and their relationship with the organization is starting to change. And sometimes that means that they're going to walk away because they're like, you know what, this is not a place that is cultivating my own personal well-being or spirituality, or however you want to hold that. Other times they'd say, hey, you know what, I think we can change this organization. There's a leader here who, you know, and so there's opportunities to do that. Yeah, top downs would be wonderful, but I'll be quite frank, you know, it's hard for people to change. And when you're at the top, everyone moves around you. And so the need for you to change is very limited. You know, it has to come something from internal, from you, or some like life circumstances, most instances. Very rarely, you know, people will change at that level to a certain point, and then they're like, okay, and that's good.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Derick said. You know, my wife is still in HR, you know, and, you know, so I have a little bit of familiarity with this, and just being involved in organizations myself too. But, you know, ERGs, employee resource groups, are, you know, one of the things that Derick was talking about, where it is someone within an organization that identifies with a certain topic, could be cultural, could be, you know, an interest group, whatever it might be, can advocate. You know, it really just takes the company to create space for allowing you know, individuals to take that leadership role and create these little affinity groups. And, you know, one example, Salesforce, you know, which is now like 100,000 person company in the Bay Area here. You know, they created, I think in 2017, a woman named Sarah, I think she was a sales leader, created Faith Force. And it is, you know, giving space for people of faith. And again, the definition is broad. And you know, at Salesforce, they even have a dedicated sort of meditation / prayer room, where you can go in and, you know, you can pray, you can meditate, whatever, you can kind of be in that space. I think they've also worked at really creating awareness around like religious holidays, so that that meeting doesn't, or that lunch doesn't get scheduled during Ramadan once we're all together again, past COVID, hopefully. So I think it's a way of setting up a system that allows for people to step forward who really are passionate about it and want to take a leadership role, even if it's just a smaller element. The other thing I'll just piggyback on too, that was Derick was saying about sort of simple things that you can do. I mean, again, they're common challenges. One of them is like, we're not relaxed enough. We like, without even thinking about it, we carry our stress physically, emotionally, mentally. So building time, I mean, you know, call it wellness. It is wellness ultimately. So whether it's that breathing exercise, or it's taking someone in, or bringing someone from an external resource to do that, to lead someone in at like a meditation light kind of a thing, to for the simple reason to reduce stress, bringing gratitude in, like having a leader or someone say, okay, you know, we're going to think about 5 things that we're grateful for. And you don't have to say them out loud, but you can share whatever. It could be at work, it could be outside of work. Like how powerful is that to get people into that sort of mindset and heart set? It kind of flips the script a little bit, letting go problems and burdens, like lead a meditation and just letting something go that you've been carrying, maybe something work related, maybe something at home. Like there are all these things I think that are spiritual really ultimately, but they don't have to have that label that a leader could, bring in, and not just bring in, but really help the energy and the environment of their organization in the process.
And I could just add one more thing. If you can have people in leadership positions or people that are just modeling a few of these things, whew, that is huge. I mean, and there's no cost to that, right? There's no budget you need. There's just someone willing to basically take what they do and bring that into the workplace.
Well, that's speaking of Salesforce, Mark Benioff. I mean, he seems like a case in point where, not that I haven't read about him meditating, but it seems like he leads by example. I think it had to do with the abortion law in Texas, and he immediately said, "Hey, anybody out there wants to be relocated out of Texas? We got you. Go for it." That's huge. And I think, companies that have ERGs or even a meditation room, sometimes the culture will prevent people from using them. They don't want to be seen. Oh, I can't go in the meditation room. Somebody might see that I'm not working. Or, if it's one of those places where people work late and it's disgusting. But anyway, it's really, Jim, when you were talking about that, it made me, so I've done projects in Southeast Asia and in the Middle East, and I've seen rooms in offices or in airports, like meditation room. It's like, how about that? And in the US, we don't have that. And it's like, we really need that. It would make such a huge difference. Well, not just to have it, but for people to actually use them. That's very interesting. Are these ERGs, is time carved out during the day, or is it after work, or how do these companies handle it?
No, I mean, I'll give another example. So we worked at Heart-Based Institute, we partnered with a company called Cloudflare, and their internet security, that's about all I know. But they had an ERG, employee resource group called Mindflare, or have one, I should say. And it's about mental health, mental wellness. And there's an employee that works there that, is very open about some of his struggles with depression and other things. And he really it felt called to not keep it sort of under wraps or whatever, but be honest. And because obviously lots of people in any organization are struggling with anxiety, with, whatever number of things. And he wanted to shine a light on it. And it's, so during May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And, during the company all hands, they, did a little presentation, and, they had a whole schedule of things all during the workday. And it's a company that's got offices all over. So they had things at different times to accommodate different schedules, Asia, APAC, Europe, whatever. But, they brought us in amongst other things like yoga and things, even on Zoom, to, kind of leads a little meditation practice. And it was drop in. So obviously it's opt-in, but it's also drop in. So you don't have to sign up for anything. It's okay at this time, just 30 minutes. It was all during the workday though, whether it was in the morning or, in the late afternoon, because what better time to say, okay, hey, I need to hit the reset button here because I'm revving kind of high. And I'd like a tool to kind of diffuse that. And there were a number of things that they offered throughout the month. So something like that, it's not on the not necessarily incumbent upon the leader to like think of all this stuff, or even HR, if there is someone who just gets a little bit of help, but is passionate and can advocate, something like that can happen.
That's very cool. That sounds great. So there, it makes me think of KPIs. Like, can they tie an ERG half an hour during the day where people can decompress or get, reground or whatever? Can they tie that to engagement? Do they have like a control group, people who haven't done it, people who have? And because if that was the case, then I think there would be a huge, movement.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anything like that. Have you? Either of you?
No, not at a KPI level, but on a survey feedback level, right?
Mhm.
Managers have shared, right, that they notice differences in their employees, right, and vice versa. And especially when you do, I can't think of the term, a 360, right?
Mm.
So when 360 is when, the manager, everyone's giving feedback to everybody and so forth. And people will share that like, oh, like I experienced you different now, like you seem to handle before, you like when you were stressed out, and that I was kind of like, I don't know if I should go ahead and tap him to see if he could do this thing. But now I feel like I can have that conversation with you because I know I won't get barked at, or whatever the case may be. And so through those type of kind of general things, but not at a very particular KPI level, not that I've seen yet.
I mean, I have seen some research out there that, I mean, it's again, it's not directly tied to a key performance indicator or whatever, but there's a hospital in Taiwan. I mean, again, maybe not surprising, it's Asia, but where the leadership had sort of a notion of bringing spirituality at a leadership level. And the study was done in 2020. So, kind of during COVID, again, when the stress is high in a hospital setting, and it was done with 164 nurses. And they compared that with hospital groups, other hospital groups, whatever, similar, nursing profession as well. And what they found was like spiritual leadership. I mean, I don't know all the details of the study, but basically it was kind of like what they determined as sort of like vision. So they talked about ideals and were clearly stated. And then sort of faith that that the leaders and that the employees would help support the vision, and like universal love was a third one, which is kind of amazing. And again, through surveys, but also through retention data, which is hard data, not just self-reported stuff. They were, when comparing to other hospitals, retention was higher. And engagement, self-reported engagement was higher, and job satisfaction was higher. And, when you're dealing with nurses who are stressed out as it is because of the work they do and the pressures they're on because of COVID and everything else, that's real. Like, to say that I'm satisfied in my job, not just like barely surviving in my job, the cost of, retraining someone, rehiring someone, all that, I think that's real. So there was another example. There's a 2021 study, again, in Asia, in Indonesia, where an oil and gas company, same kind of thing, where leadership was actually more sort of front and center about sort of spirituality. And, again, sort of the positive feeling about the workplace was higher there than like an Exxon and other oil and gas companies that were similar. So.
That's really interesting. So it's happening, basically. It's happening.
I think it is. I mean, like you started, Joe, saying in the beginning, I think people are hungry for it. It's there. I think you're put in positions or situations where it's clear that, you need help and whatever form that help comes in, to get over, the things that are blocking you, that are limiting you, or causing you to feel anxious, or like it's all on you. you know, I think, again, the labels aren't important. The belief system, I mean, it does matter, of course, but at the end of the day, it's that connection and relying on that connection to help get over whatever you're going through, whether it's in the business world or personal struggles or what have you. It's just being reminded and having tools to tap into it.
Okay. Well, that's very cool. That actually, it's a nice segue. We've got about 15 minutes left. You mentioned earlier sort of heart meditation, and you're executive director of the Heart-Based Institute. Can you talk a little bit about that? And Derick, you're a director as well, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so can you share a little bit about the Heart-Based Institute? What is it about? What is its purpose?
Yeah, really, our function is to help individuals and organizations rely on their spiritual heart to have peace, calm, joy, gratitude be their normal state, not when you're meditating, not just when you're praying, but like relying on this connection, the heart connection, to have that be the new normal. Not just when you go on vacation do you experience peace, or you know, not just when you get something kind of amazing that you experience gratitude, but like for the little things, you know, bringing that into moment to moment. And again, I mentioned earlier, you know, we want to meet people where they are. We don't want to say, you know, this is, or, you know, this is our terminology. No, we really rely on the individual or the organization or the individual within the organization to, you know, do what's comfortable for them. We just give the framework and, you know, sort of the door opener to experience it.
Yeah. How does this heart meditation differ from mindfulness?
And I don't want to, you know, mindfulness is great. I mean, I think the more meditation rooms, the more space that is held for meditation in any setting, not just corporate or nonprofit or wherever, is awesome. I think where the heart is a little bit different, you know, mindfulness, at least as I've experienced it, it often relies on sort of, you know, kind of a focus on breathing. Some of it might be visualization, where you're kind of using that sort of detached, like a detached observer, where you're not being pulled in. And there is definite benefit to that, because if we're constantly being in this reactive mode where, you know, this guy pissed me off, or I can't believe she did that, or whatever it is, you know, you're going, the amygdala is stimulated and you're fight or flight, and you're not, you know, you're not thinking about, okay, how can I reposition this or whatever. So that awareness is very important. I think the difference, or one of the differences with the heart-based approach, is again, sort of, it's sort of about connection. And it's not, okay, I'm going to be in this state and I'm going to focus on my breathing and out. It's actually really simple in that it's about sort of the positive feelings of the heart and just experiencing that and smiling and sort of just like being happy, and letting that actually bring you deeper into the experience, rather than trying to sort of calm the mind through a technique.
Wonderful.
And Derick, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I'll add it and add to that just from a different angle a little bit. And so I did mindfulness for a long time and shared and taught as part of helping people improve their performance and things of that sort. And it sounds a little simple, but I'll share a little story with it. I guess that might help. Is that mindfulness centers around the mind. The mind is the center, right? And we use our mind very well every day, but it's still centered around the mind, and we learn to relax our mind and have more awareness and observe, but still around the mind. When I used to teach Tai Chi, they teach you to center differently. You center it down in your belly first and then propagate. But it was interesting trying to teach Tai Chi to people that was centered on their mind, because they're just watching me and they're just kind of like, I'm like, no, you got to move. You got to move, you got to feel. And like, you weren't used to using their bodies, right? And it was just kind of like foreign to them. It's like, and then you have people that are used to using their bodies and they can just do it right away because they're used to being in their bodies, using their bodies. And it's just like, oh, okay, you want me to do the thing. Well, the heart-based meditation, we learn to use our hearts. And this is a part of us that, you know, as babies, as kids, we knew how to use, right? I have a 6-year-old running around somewhere upstairs. He'll fall and hurt himself and cry a little, and then he's happy, he's joyful, it's forgotten, it's gone. He's just like, let's go, Dad, let's go do something fun, right? And then I also have a daughter that's 17 years old in high school, right, who's been taking AP classes and it's really much in her mind, and like something happens, like she's still kind of in this reactive mind state, even though she knows some heart-based meditation, and it takes some time. And so for me, this ability to reconnect to our heart, the part of us that feels happiness, compassion, love, something that we all experienced when we were younger, it's just a beautiful gift. And as an adult, to re-experience that and to remember that and to reconnect to that part of yourself, not that we're forgetting about our mind and our body, because they're all connected, right? But just to kind of just reconnect with that part of ourselves, it makes life so much different in the best way.
Sounds wonderful. So where would someone go to learn more about this?
Well, I don't know about Derick's leadership, but heartbase.org is our website, and we do these sort of series that are free, and you can, it's like a 5-session series, open heart for everyone, and you can experience it. So it's, yeah, I mean, but again, I don't want to make it about us per se or whatever. I mean, I think for a leader, or someone who's got an affinity or sees a need within an organization, like any sort of practice that's going to, give purpose and meaning beyond, the bottom line, will help the bottom line, for sure, because they're going to be, those employees are going to be engaged. They're going to have that sense of purpose. They're going to be able to bring in that authentic self into the moment to moment. So
it seems like part of the, it's generational, and like the Gen Zers are very much purpose driven and mission driven and meaning driven. And if they can sort of, well, if all of us can, but the old school management, which are the boomers or whatever we are, it's like, if it seems like that shift, time will definitely, it's happening, the change is happening. But as far as people finding meaning in their work life, where they spend, a third of their life, it's interesting. I've come up with all kinds of crazy ideas in my brain that I thought were great, and they were horrible. But then I've had feelings like down here in my heart, like, oh, this just doesn't feel right, or, oh, I should do this, I don't know why. And when I follow that feeling, it works out really well. And so what you're saying makes sense. And I'm glad that there's something like the Heart-Based Institute that's out there sort of helping organizations, because then that stuff sort of spreads. It's really good. How should we wrap this conversation up here?
I don't know, Derick, what do you Derick, I think you're kind of, by the way, I think just from your organization standpoint too, like the leadership phase, like that top down, or not, doesn't have to be top down, but I don't want to take it all just Heart-Based Institute stuff. I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, we're all connected, and Like for me, if you're a leader out there, or you're someone that's wishing to see the way we work and organize change, it may seem kind of daunting, like where to start, how to do it. And I just would say that as a gentle reminder, it starts with each one of us. And if you're in a leadership position, you're able to, your ripples goes a little bit further in the organization faster. And so by you just doing that personal exploration yourself, it will transform you and transform your work environment.
And you're consulting to change agents, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I work with change agents who are trying to do the very thing, just change the way we work together at a very fundamental level.
That's interpersonal, not necessarily operational, or both.
It's both. It's
Oh.
both. Yeah, self-organization is kind of in how you do that and create collaborative governance and things. I mean, it's all interrelated, and the bigger the impact you're trying to make, the more cooperation you need. And we had to have rules of how we work together. But if those rules are kind of dictated from, we're all coming from the same space, it makes that level of teamwork so much easier.
So how would someone, you're available for coaching?
I'm available for coaching. You can
How can we get in touch with you?
through Derick at heartcenteredcoaching.org.
heartcenteredcoaching.org. Derick at heartcenteredcoaching.org for Derick Carter, and heartbased.org for Jim Van Huysse. This has been a great conversation. Thank you both for taking time to talk about this stuff and to share. It's it feels good to actually talk about this really foundational stuff that actually applies to real people and real world issues and problems in the future. So the future of work. So thank you both again. And to our audience out there, thank you for watching. We'll be back in a couple weeks to discuss the politics in the future of work. So that'll be interesting. There might be some overlap there. I don't know, spirituality, politics.
Taboo?
Maybe not, maybe not. I don't know. So, okay, guys, I think you know what to do. I'm going to put on the splash screen here, and we'll catch you all next week. Take care.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank
You
you,
too.
Jim. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Joe.